Okay. Hello, everybody. How you doing? So another video, continuing on from the last one. So we're going to talk about some more evidence for the theory enunciated in the previous video, the stone stitching, and just a little correction. I said obviously the nubs will be a lower density to the other rock. That is true, but this surrounding rock, it could be exactly the same stone as the nub. As the stone is being poured from the top, it's coming out the holes on the bottom of the stone, and then it's all being smoothed over. And then once that's all complete, a little bit more comes off. The bloke at the top pouring it in stops, and that's it. And the nubs are left as residual, and that's a good way to apply the stones and stitch them together. Apply the facades, stitch them together all in one go. Okay, so that's excellent. And if this was the case, the stone stitching channels would be visible. We're going to see that in this video. And more. If these were builders, the Aryans, probably because they have Aryan gods, similar to the Hindu gods, we've seen that in previous videos in their textiles. Well, it follows that these people were worldwide travelers. They built these things around the world, and they did. We're going to look at Troy, and we're going to look at who Homer says built the walls of Troy, and we're going to look at the walls of Troy. That's nice. So let's go through the slideshow, shall we? So obviously this some kind of serpent at the bottom of the walls of Sacsayhuaman. What's going on there? That's Cuzco. What's going on there? Probably because it represents the lowest level of some gigantic pyramid, possibly. And therefore it's representing the hell, the snake, Loki's child, whichever mythology you want to use, they're all similar. Same thing at Sacsayhuaman, there's a snake at the lower level, and this is possibly to represent, so this might have been shown that this was a temple. And the same thing here, because this was a multi-level structure, Sacsayhuaman, it might have had ritual use as well as a kind of pyramid, showing that the lowest level, the underworld, there is a gigantic snake wrapping around the world mountain, and therefore this is representing the earth, the world, because there's a world serpent wrapping around the world. And we talk about the channels. The channels should be visible. And the bloke who supplied this photo in his paper, he actually wrote, look, you can see there's a wedge here. It fits tight at the bottom, at the front, but not tight at the back. But the other thing is, well, what's this doing here? And we see the same. We see these types of internal internal channels at different sites around the Inca world. What are they for? What's going on? Obviously, some facade has lifted away, and we are exposing what's behind. And what's behind is basically a bit of a mess, really, a bit ill-fitting. Look, that's the end of the facade stone there. What's behind it? Some just rough stone is behind it, literally. You can see that quite clearly. What's going on? What's going on? And if the elephant toothpaste model is correct, the liquid being poured in the top, it comes out the nubs, you would expect to find that they've cut holes. Basically, this is one long nub here. You would expect to find they've cut holes in the rock. And they have. They were able to cut holes in the rock, which is fascinating. And here we see where there is no facade, because there's a hole, you can see the holes. Look, it suddenly doesn't fit very well. And this is an area where the facade has been removed, proving the theory, or possibly giving evidence for the theory. I'm not sure, it's not proven, but giving evidence for that theory. You can see the facade is not there, and there are holes for supporting it somehow. Also, facade has possibly been removed from here, possibly some earthquake damage here. Look, this is incredible. You know those little tiny little stones that fit perfectly? Those little stones are here. The same little stones, but notice they're not fitting perfectly, and notice they never did. The facade on these rocks seems to be gone. These are just the bare rocks themselves, and the facade is gone. And the chemical would have fixed around these little stones, and they said, look at these perfectly fitting little stones in other pictures. Look at them, in Cuzco, look at them. Well, they're not perfectly fitting at all. even if you plonk these stones back together, they see there would be a massive gap, massive gaps between the rocks. So to fix this, you need a facade. It's the only way. And mysterious things like this, it's obviously for playing, for experimentation. You do an experiment maybe out of the way. Obviously, look, there's an internal temple in there, quite interesting. But you play around, you experiment, and lots of these things are found around Peru. And you think, well, why would they bother doing this? Because they're perfecting their technique. These are stones, rubble, coated literally with the chemical compound directly. And here is some indirect, extremely indirect evidence of what's going on. You see these snakes, I reckon this means it was a temple or something, but you see these two snakes interacting, and they're even touching each other, and sometimes they're coming down from heaven, but they go in all directions, and they're squiggling. So I'm wondering, is this a clue from the builders as to what's going on? That there's internal squiggling going on, that this substance has been poured through the channels to stitch the stones together. And is this a clue for future people, to show them what's going on? And it goes on and on and on. This looks like a section where the facade has been removed. I don't think that's an attempt at rebuilding. To me, that's an attempt at basically that is the original. I reckon that could be close to the original, and the facade is gone, and it was just smoothed over, and it has gone. Look at that. Interesting. Yep. Okay. Now, this is Troy. And I reckon this was once coated in the same facade, but that facade might have been stolen and used elsewhere and stripped due to its beauty. And we'll see why in a moment. Now, do you see, for starters, there are some similarities with the Inca world. We see this angle. The walls are on the same angle that we see in the Inca world. And the walls are quite thick. What's going on here? What is going on with Troy? All right. A bit closer up. So some of the stones fit very well. Others don't fit very well at all. I think that is reconstructed mud brick. I'm not sure. And there we go. So, this is what we're looking at, possibly reconstructed. Honestly, it might be a wall in Cuzco. And this is the ancient Trojans in the Bronze Age. Again, look, there's a very well-built wall. Again, it's got this angle that the Incas used. There's a not so well built wall. What's going on? Hard to tell. There's been possibly too much restoration over the years. We don't know what's going on. But it would seem that the Trojan builders were similar to the Inca builders, and we'll maybe the same, and we'll see why in a moment. And the thing is, let me tell you now. See, Homer wrote about these walls again and again and again. And he knew who built these walls. He knew who built them. But they were not the Trojans, according to Homer. Now, Omar, probably Phoenician Carthaginian. This is Phoenician Carthaginian literature that the Greeks enjoyed reading. Okay. Now, the Romans obviously wiped out their literature, except for some books by Margot. But Homer says the Trojans didn't build this. He said the Greeks didn't build it. He says some gods built it, and they didn't get paid. Very interesting, very interesting. So, who built the walls of Troy? Well, Apollo and Neptune did. And this is a picture of Apollo, Neptune, and his team building the walls of Troy while clubbing a dragon, while doing a few different things. And the story basically goes from Ovid, basically, the king, Laomedon, said, the walls are going too slowly, we can't build them. Apollo teamed up with Neptune, both turning into mortal form before making an agreement with Laomedon to help build the walls of Troy for a price. And basically what happens is they don't get paid. Laomedon says he'll sacrifice anything born in the kingdom that year. There's different versions of it. He doesn't live up to his bargain, and we don't know what happened next. It's lost to history. But Laomedon swears he never even agreed to the deal he made with the two. The action rolls into a play of the downfall of Troy, and that is seen as a broken promise. So we see more of that in the actual Iliad. Okay, so basically Homer goes on and on and on about the walls being heaven built or being beautiful. And here in the Iliad, he basically has King Neptune is whining to Apollo. Neptune is saying, I built the wall. And he's telling Apollo it was me who built it. So Neptune, what does that mean? The sea. So basically a bunch of seafarers went to Troy, were promised pay, worked a year, built the walls, and were told to leave. And they didn't get paid. And he says, I built the Trojans the wall about their city so far and wide that it might be impregnable, while you, Phoebus, herded cattle for him. However, the glad hours brought round the time of payment. Mighty Laomedon robbed us of all our hire and sent us off with nothing but abuse. He threatened to bind us hand and foot and sell us over into some distant land. He tried to cut off the ears of both of us, so we went away in a rage, furious about the payment he had promised us, and yet withheld. In spite of all this, you are now showing favour to his people, and will not join us in compassing the utter ruin of the proud Trojans with their wives and children. So it doesn't sound like a God speaking, it sounds like, people speaking. So what's going on? It's all mixed up, it's all muddled up. But basically these builders hired from elsewhere, they came by sea because Neptune, etc., etc. Just amazing. So I wanted to show you that. I wanted to present that. Could be the Inca builders. Okay, hope you've enjoyed this video. And just to clarify something from the previous video, with the carved facade, if it's lower density, the nub will look like it's been carved, but it hasn't, because the facade appears uniform, but it in fact hasn't. It's all a facade. You have to look behind the entire facade to see the real stones. Okay, cheerio guys.